the big topic today is them pulling the plug on New Orleans. And there's a lot of layers to this. And Bully, I don't know of a major sporting event that 3 months after making the announcement pulls the plug. Like, imagine if the NFL said, you know what? We've decided we're not going to have the Super Bowl in Detroit. We're going to, you know what? We're going to go to another. There'd be outrage. People would be screaming at the top of their lungs. And I think people are really, really upset. I think people are very upset about this change.
I agree that people would be screaming at the top of their lungs if the location of the Super Bowl was changed or anything like that. I agree that people will be screaming at the top of their lungs because the location of WrestleMania is being changed. But we need to sit back and wait and see what happens when the screaming dies. Yesterday, me and you had a brief conversation. To me, the thing that is going to be very telling if they go back to Vegas, because there hasn't been an official announcement, right?
No, it's not.
Right,
it's
Dave?
not official. No, it's not official yet. No.
So if they go back to Vegas, day one ticket sales this year as compared to day one ticket sales last year. Now, last year was a little bit different, so there's got to be a little bit of a floating scale here. Not like Tommy's scale floats, because that goes, well, it just goes up. There's got to be a little bit of a floating scale here, because last year WrestleMania was in Vegas during Easter. And I believe, you don't have to be a rocket scientist on this one, that because it was Easter affected people going to Vegas. I know the attendance was low. They still did about 50,000 people each night. Imagine it wasn't Easter. Would it be safe to say a low-end guesstimate that if it's not Easter weekend, another 10,000 each night?
It's possible.
Now, if they decide to go back to Vegas this year, are people going to be like, been there, done that, spent too much money, don't need to do it? Or will all the people that got shut out last year, because it was during Easter weekend, so first day sales, because, people are going to bitch, moan, and complain. On the way here, Tommy said, if you're going to call in today, be one of the people that had already made plans to go to New Orleans and are now pissed off about it. Because if you weren't originally going, if you didn't make your plans already, what the frick do you care? Do you really care what arena you're looking at on your TV screen when you're watching WrestleMania?
I mean, everything you're saying, I understand everything you're saying, but there's a few things here. First and foremost, I think it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to make an official announcement on live TV in front of an arena full of people, and then 3 months later, you pull the plug.
Are you embarrassed?
I am embarrassed.
You're embarrassed for the WWE?
Yes, because I want everything to do well. I hate when things like this happen that impede momentum and buzz in a positive way about pro wrestling. Whenever there's something negative, even though it gives us good conversation here on the air, I want everything to be as successful as it could possibly be. So, like, to me, it's embarrassing.
I could understand if you were to say you were concerned for the wrestling business, because the wrestling business definitely affects what we do here. So if you're concerned for the business and how it could affect Busted Open, that I get. But embarrassed? That's a stretch, Dave. And if that's the way you genuinely feel, if that's your feelings, then it is what it is. Because the WWE is not going to be embarrassed if we don't get 24/7, and we've been talking about 24/7 for a fucking year.
All right, so let me say this, Bully. Say Big Boss Man Eddie Briselli says to us right after today's show on Tuesday, it's happening, guys. We're going 24/7. Come October 1st, 2025, Busted Open is going 24/7. And Eddie says, Bully, I want you to make the announcement on Tuesday morning that we're going 24/7. And then you make the announcement on Tuesday that we're going 24/7. And then 3 months later, as we're approaching the time we're going, he goes, you know what? Some things have happened. It's out of my control. Unfortunately, guys, we're not going 24. You wouldn't be embarrassed that you went live on the air and made the announcement that we're going 24/7, and now they pulled the plug?
Dave, would I be embarrassed? Sure, because I'm the one with egg on my face. So if you want to find out if somebody's embarrassed, call your friend The Rock.
Well, he doesn't answer my calls, and right now he's not answering. He's not
That's
posting
the
on Instagram.
only person that is going to possibly be embarrassed, because he's going to be like, I'm the biggest star in Hollywood. I'm the biggest star in wrestling, blah, blah, blah. You send me, I go out there. We're making the big announcement for WrestleMania. Cody, I'm going to take your soul, but then everybody please love me, because we're going to wrestle. We're coming to New Orleans for WrestleMania. If anybody is to be embarrassed, it's The Rock. But for you to say that you're embarrassed for the WWE, that feels like a little bit of a stretch, maybe the wrong word. But yeah, people are going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe they did this. They're so wrong for doing it. Well, how are you affected by it?
Well, again, if people were planning on going,
Right.
And here's the other thing.
That's why I said, I was listening on the way in, and what Tommy said, if you're going to call in and you want to complain, you have already should have bought your plane tickets and booked your hotels, because now you have a reason to be pissed off.
Yeah, but I'm going to go.
No, it's also, hey man, we're going to WrestleMania.
We're going to WrestleMania.
People also give them as Christmas gifts to their kids. I mean, there's a lot to this.
Okay, so don't go to New Orleans, go to Vegas.
No, but that's not easy to say, Bully, because, and Tommy, I'm sorry, I don't mean to step on you. I'll let you go for just a second. 3/4 of the fans who go to WrestleMania go from outside that city. So, maybe there's people that went to Vegas and it was too expensive. I'm not going back to Vegas, but they were planning on going to New Orleans.
Listen, if you were planning on going to New Orleans and haven't made your travel plans yet, you can make your travel plans to go to Vegas. It's not that big of a deal. And
but maybe they don't want to go to Vegas. Maybe they want to go to New Orleans, which
it's WrestleMania. It's like saying I don't want to go to a different city for the Super Bowl. It's the Super Bowl. You're going to go wherever the hell it is.
No, I disagree, because there's people who traveled into Vegas, spent an arm and a leg, probably had to sell their house in order to pay for the fucking hotels and the Ubers while they were in Vegas. And now you're asking them to go back again?
Dave,
the same city that they were just in?
This is why I said you have to wait for day one. And I know we're not going to sit here and not talk about things until day one of ticket sales. But I will tell you this about wrestling fans. And I'm going to give you a very specific example. And Tommy can back this up, because I've seen it too many times. Tommy, how many times have you been at your autograph table and you have people that come up to the table who look like, and this is if you're judging the book by its cover, look like they could be on government assistance, and then whip out an envelope full of hundreds?
Yeah,
and start buying everything at your table. And you're like, where did that money come from? Wrestling fans are very, very dedicated, especially WWE fans. They spend money. The WWE did not just wake up. Somebody at TKO or Hunter didn't just roll out of bed yesterday and go, you know what? I don't like New Orleans. It's too humid. I don't like crawfish. And there's not really any great strip clubs on Bourbon Street anymore. Fuck it. Let's go to Vegas.
Delilah's closed.
No, no. I mean, that's not the reason why.
This is a calculated decision.
For more money.
Based on money, without a doubt. Do I think people are going to get annoyed by this? Yes. Yes, they are going to be annoyed by it. It's going to be a wait and see. But I think at the end of the day, much like everything that goes on in all of the quote unquote negative that goes on with the WWE, where people could be, what's the word I'm looking for? Enticed to be pissed off with the company, they're going to forget real quick. Because I want to go to WrestleMania.
It's an interesting. That's why I think it's a fascinating topic, Bully. Because again, I've again never seen a major sporting event change cities like this after making a major announcement on live TV. It just doesn't happen unless there's some kind of catastrophe or tragedy. You just don't see it.
One last point for those people who live in New Orleans, like you were saying earlier, who were super excited by The Rock's announcement. We're going to WrestleMania. This is going to be great. First of all, they didn't have their tickets yet. Second of all, it is way, way early enough for them to have made this decision. If this was a month to, let's call it right after the Rumble, because the two winners of the Rumble, go to the main event of WrestleMania, or at least they're supposed to. Right after the Rumble, they say, no, we changed venues. Then I get it. This is real early in the process. Card subject to change. Stuff like that is going to happen. Remember, folks, we're dealing with professional wrestling here. And as much as it's a publicly traded company and TKO, and there are no rules, there are no regulations. Pro wrestling will do whatever it wants, whenever it wants. And if we've learned anything, people will forgive wrestling.
I think one thing that everybody listening to this show should understand, as you've heard so many wrestlers say, we are preconditioned to it's not happening until it happened. Where even like Hacksaw Jim Duggan, like, hey, I'm going to win the Royal Rumble. No way. Blah, blah. And then he wins the Royal Rumble. And then it becomes reality, because so many times, even when you're walking through that curtain, finishes change, things change. This is from a wrestler mindset. And I think now all the wrestling fans can experience that. Bubba, to Dave's point, I'm not speaking of Dave for Dave, but it's perception. And you also have your people who are, if you're on the fence, but also if you're against what's going on, it's a little bit of egg on your face.
What does that mean, against what's going on?
Why are they moving stuff? Blah, blah, blah. Is this just a money grab? This company no longer cares about their fans, because that was a bit of a backlash from last year with prices.
Can we just go counterpoint here, because I think it'll make it a little bit more interesting. You just said about it's a money grab and they're showing that they're not caring about fans. Yes, it's a money grab, as in Vegas came in over the top. If it's Vegas, this is a hypothesis. This is a really strong hypothesis, though. Vegas comes in over the top and says, we'll give you X amount of dollars more. New Orleans turns around and goes, whoa, 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 time out. You can't just pick up and leave like that. And the WWE goes, wait a minute. We're sorry that this is happening. You're right. Picking up and leaving doesn't sound right. But what if we give you this and we give you this? And New Orleans turns around and goes, you know what? That doesn't sound 100%. Too bad. So it's not like the city of New Orleans took to TV last night and said, F you, WWE. You left us high and dry. No, New Orleans is getting money in the bank. They'll probably get something else. And it seems like it was a amicable splitting. Now, as far as fans are concerned, do you think fans really give a shit about the money grab? Yes, people might be saying it's more expensive to go to Vegas than it is to New Orleans. That conversation I understand, but it really didn't stop people last time. I think the number one thing that deterred a bigger attendance at WrestleMania last year was not money, it was Easter.
Well, we'll find out from the
no. Let Tommy go ahead and finish about the money grab.
No, I just think there's so many, different sides of this. I think the biggest ramifications if WrestleMania goes out of the country and by either the UK or Saudi, because I think domestically people won't travel. A lot of fans won't travel to either places. Then that, they'll capture the UK market. It'll still be a great show, but people will feel, slighted. If you're from Dave's point of view, but also I'll tell you from my point of view, I was the die-hardest Nick fan. And then I started realizing the management didn't care about the Knicks because fans just kept going. It was the in thing to do, or it was the casual thing to do. You did lose your diehards, but now that they're back, I'd shell out any piece of money to go to a Knicks championship game. Just also so you know, you do not make an announcement like that, or even on the lowest level, an indie show. Hey, I'm running an indie show at this building, unless contracts are signed and things, I's are, dotted, T's are crossed. So there has to be some sort of negotiation, like Bully said, of, hey, this is the reason, or blah, 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 blah. We'll give you this. Because then also New Orleans could come around and say, you did this, you promised this, we'll come after you because we also know you got money and Louisiana needs money.
The state would sue their balls off. This is why it comes down to the four corners of the contract. Four corners of the contract is a legal term where only the words on the pages of the four corners of those pages is what matters. Now, let's say that the contract says if the WWE splits, they owe the city of New Orleans $12 gazillion, whatever. This might have been a sidebar. Remember, contracts are written up by men and women, okay? Men and women make an agreement on contracts, and then men and women can make disagreements on contracts and break contracts based on new contracts. WWE offered something up. The city of New Orleans accepted because they figured, hey, now we can get two events over here or whatever. To Tommy's point about international, if the WWE would go to Saudi, then I think the perception for WrestleMania, I think the perception would be a little bit more difficult because it's like I don't think a lot of people would want to go to Saudi.
It's the same if they moved the Super Bowl to Germany or to the UK one year.
England,
I think fans will be like, wait, what?
England, different story. We have the premise of SummerSlam in England. And remember, back in the day, we had a territory system, the Northeast, all the different territories. The territory for the WWE right now is the world.
Again, it's the fan that gets pushed out. Because that's it's the fan that always gets screwed.
Who is getting pushed out? Which fan is getting? Which one?
Bully, on live television, they announced that WrestleMania is going to be in New Orleans.
What you just said right now has nothing to do with your comment of the fan gets pushed out. What fan is getting pushed out of WrestleMania?
How do you feel? A fan that lives in New Orleans that was planning on going to WrestleMania feels this morning, knowing that it's not going to happen. How does the fan who is planning on traveling to New Orleans?
Let's take a break.
The uber minority of fans.
That's your hardcore fan that you
depend on.
That is the uber minority of fan. When you piss off your hardcore fan, when you lose your hardcore fan, you lose everything.
Okay.
You guys are out of touch.
You are the voice of the uber minority.
I'm the voice of the fan that
You are the voice of the uber minority
that goes to WrestleMania.
Situation.
877-344-4893. 877. You guys look at it differently than the fan does, and that's the problem. And that right there, what you just said, is the fucking problem. 877.
They don't care.
All right, that's a big fuck you to the fan.